Diversity in comics is an interesting topic right now. It's kind of a funny situation. And the reason why is because I've been going through these news articles, looking at people who are, I guess, looking at these posts that people are making, talking about, comic book fans are lashing out at diversity yet again. And what I'm seeing is this common theme that these news articles are basically making the case that, well, comic book fans are against diversity because they're inherently racist. They're against Riri Williams because she's a minority and they don't want to see a minority succeed. They're against the New 52 Wally West because he's a minority and they don't want to see minorities succeed. That's stupid. And that's probably one of the most irresponsible instances of journalism, if you can even call it journalism. But it's one of the most irresponsible instances of journalism that I've ever heard of or ever seen in any form or fashion. The reason why comic book fans are so outraged right now is because the characters they're invested in are going away. That's why they're mad. What's happening is people are saying, well, no, it's like they're taking the notion of a character's race, they're slapping it on and saying, no, this is the reason why they're angry. It's not because the characters changed, it's because they changed into minorities. No. The way you want to know how I know that? You want to know how I know that fans were so outraged that their characters changed? The New 52, DC's New 52 initiative. In 2011, when DC came along and they said everything stops except for Batman and Green Lantern, their histories kind of stay intact, but everything gets reset. Whether you were a Superman fan, whether you were a Wonder Woman fan, regardless of what kind of a fan you were, people were lashing out. They were angry. Why? Because they were invested. Because they started reading comics in 1990 and they'd read, good Superman stories, they'd read bad Superman stories. They read great Wonder Woman stories, they read bad Wonder Woman stories. But they were there through thick and thin. They were a loyal fan to DC. And now they felt betrayed. They felt cheated because all that history was gone. All that money that they had spent, all that time they had spent reading those characters was all gone. And they were angry. They were outraged about it. Comicstorian did a really, really good video where he talked about the notion of diversity. And one of the problems that he addressed was this idea of forced diversity, basically saying, yeah, the heroes changed and you have to read the new heroes now. DC did that. And the New 52 sales did amazing for like the first 2 issues of almost everything. And then after that, they started dropping off. The only exception to that was like Justice League, some of the more premier titles, or like Batman, as it was written by Scott Snyder because it was done so well. But for like 90% of their roster, sales were falling swift and fast. And DC tried to change it up. They said, well, we'll do convergence. We'll bring back some of these old characters for a last hurrah. We'll bring back, we'll do like DCU, where it's just stories that revolve around you and there's no continuity. It's wherever you want it to be. And it was confusing and it was ridiculous and sales fell even further. So you know what DC did? DC said, stop the presses, rebirth. We're literally going to bring back all these old characters that you loved. All those histories for those individual characters are going to be intact. And we're just going to go from there. We're just going to keep on going on, and you're basically going to get the best of both worlds. And you know what happened? DC Rebirth took the world by storm. It literally set the world on fire in 2016 and crushed Marvel in sales. I mean, obliterated Marvel. There was one point, I don't remember if it was like July or August or something like that. Marvel had 3 titles in the top 30 publications released in a month. 3. DC took everything else. Just throwing it out there. It was insane how well it did. And the reason why is because people felt like they hadn't been cheated anymore. People got the histories and those legacies back. When a fan sat down and they said, hey, there's this new 52 Wally West, I don't like him. It wasn't because he was a minority. It wasn't because he was African American. It was because when they started reading Wally West, they got into him because of Justice League, the cartoon show, because of Justice League Unlimited, the cartoon show, because that was the Wally West that they loved, because they were reading Wally West when he first became the Flash. They've been reading him ever since, and they just liked him. Comic book fans are as resistant to change as your average human being is. I knew a guy at the old job that I worked at who ate his blueberry muffins for his morning snack every morning at 9:30 on the dot. Didn't miss a beat. It was 9:30 a.m. You could walk in, he's sitting at that table and he's eating his blueberry muffins. Woe betide the poor soul who walked in there and said, hey man, give me your blueberry muffins. Sorry, you can't eat those today. He would lose his shit. Like he would freak, all right? That's just how people are. Well, I've been doing it this way for 20 years and it just works and I don't really see a reason to change. It's always been that way in comics. That's nothing new. This whole diversity initiative, it adds a new dynamic because of the fact that these characters are minorities, but the fact that they are minorities is not why fans are adverse to them. In 1940, Jay Garrick appeared for the very first time. He was the Flash, the first Flash. And he was the Flash for like 8 years or something like that. And then his comics were tanking because science fiction was becoming more popular. And so DC canceled his title. In 1956, they introduced a new Flash named Barry Allen. And you know what Jay Garrick fans said? Barry Allen sucks. Barry Allen doesn't need to be the Flash. Barry Allen is absolute trash. I hate Barry Allen. Give me Jay Garrick back. Now, Barry Allen's sales did good for a little while, but then they started slumping off. And so what did DC do? In 1961, they wrote Flash of Two Worlds and said, here's Jay Garrick. Now, and then the sales of the Flash comics started going back up again because now Jay Garrick fans got Jay in Justice Society of America, and they had Barry Allen. So now they had the best of both worlds. They could just kind of pick and choose which one they wanted to read. This lasted for 19 years until 1985 when Barry Allen died in Crisis on Infinite Earths, and Wally West, who up until that point had been his sidekick, was now the Flash. And you know what Barry Allen fans said? Wally West sucks. Wally West is trash. Wally West does not need to be the Flash. Now, this lasted almost 20 years, or it lasted a little bit longer than that, actually. It lasted until 2011, when Barry Allen was the Flash again, the main Flash, the only Flash, with the new 52. And you know what Wally West fans said? So it's not like it's something brand new. It's not like it's something that's just now happening. It's something that's been around this entire time. But Comicstorian had a damn good point when he said, here's the issue. Iron Man fans sit down and they say, yes, Tony Stark's done everything. Tony Stark found out he had a long-lost brother. Tony Stark found out he was adopted and met his biological mom. Tony Stark's been part of the Guardians of the Galaxy. Tony Stark's pissed off the whole superhero community in Civil War. Tony Stark decided to be a dick just for the sake of being a dick in Superior Iron Man. Tony Stark has succumbed to alcoholism and lost everything in Demon in a Bottle. Tony Stark has done it all. So they say, yeah, sure, okay, there's only so much you can do with a Tony Stark story, but don't just suddenly get rid of him. Make something new. That's literally your job as a comic creator, is not to rehash old stuff, but to make good stuff, make new stuff. Use your imagination. That's what you're paid to do. That's what we as comic book readers buy comics for, is new things. If that wasn't the case, we'd all just be reading Crisis on Infinite Earths over and over and over again in DC Comics. Instead, we get new and we get incredible and we get amazing stories. And Bendis did a great job with Iron Man. And he's kind of, coming back around again. But the reason why fans are upset is because they sit down and they say, but I've been reading Tony Stark forever. Like, I've been reading him for so long. I love Tony Stark. I want to see Tony Stark come back. And even if he can't, just let me kind of, say, bye, man, it's been real. Don't just make me read Riri Williams, because I don't know her character. I don't know anything about her. I can't relate to her. There's nothing about her that I find interesting. I find Tony Stark interesting, but I don't find her interesting. And so because of that, now they're like, well, why am I going to read Iron Man if Tony Stark's not there? They don't have a reason to. Not only that, they feel cheated. They feel like Marvel's coming along and saying, you need to read this. All right, this is the only thing you don't have any options here. You don't have any choices. Name me the last time you were okay with somebody coming along and telling you didn't have a choice in a situation. No one's ever okay with that. It's just the way people are. But it's like that with every facet of comic books. It's not a racial thing. Jane Foster became Thor, and you know what Odin's Son fans said? The same thing that Barry Allen fans said when Wally West became the Flash. Oh, Jane Foster sucks. Jane Foster's trash. Jane Foster does not need to be Thor. I've been reading Odin's Son since before Ragnarok. Or maybe there were some people that read Thor Ragnarok and were like, damn, man, Thor's dead. And then J. Michael Straczynski picked up the title, brought Thor back. They watched him recreate Asgard. They watched him find the spiritual essences of all the Asgardians, return them to their normal bodies. They read all that stuff as it all just kind of progressed. And then suddenly, Odin's Son's gone and Jane Foster's Thor, and they felt cheated and they felt angry because they felt like all that time and money, all that energy had been invested was just basically thrown away. But Comicstorian had a great point when he said this only goes so far. Diversity is not an inherently bad thing. What you have to do is give people choices. You have to sit a person down and say, here's 2 titles. Here's Tony Stark and here's Riri Williams. Pick which one you want. Now, in my mind, for me, if Marvel sat me down and said, hey, Rob, here's a Riri Williams Iron Man title and here's a Tony Stark Iron Man title, which one do you want to read? I'm reading Riri Williams because there's nothing in that comic book they can tell me that I probably haven't seen before in some form or fashion. Maybe they can. And if I do, I'll just kind of skim through it. But my interest will be in Riri Williams. I will read that from front to back and take my time. So it's not a racial thing. Amadeus Cho. It's really just about the fact that people become invested in characters. They become attached to those characters. They watch the characters grow. They watch the mythos grow. Mark Waid introduced the Speed Force. Mark Waid basically established the chronological order of speedsters. Talked about how it all came into existence, how it all happened, how speedsters got their powers. Now, Jeff Johns changed a lot of that when he took over the Flash title, but the fact remains that fans were there when they were learning how the Speed Force functions. That with speedsters, it's not because they were just doused with chemicals one day and they could run super fast. There's this, enigmatic energy force out there that they draw all their speed from, and when they die, they merge with it. That's their heaven. That's their afterlife. It was great storytelling, and they were there for all that. And then now they're suddenly being told, no, that's not there anymore. And so because of that, this is why diversity is really kind of a big thing, is because it's not fans who are inherently against comic book changes because of race. And so I don't really like the notion of diversity, because what diversity indicates is that fans are against these characters because of their minorities. They're against these characters because they're black, or because they're of Asian orientation, or because they're a woman or something like that. That's stupid. They're against this change because the characters that you know and love are suddenly just not there anymore. As it stands right now in Marvel Comics, Peter Parker is the last man standing. He's the last guy who's Spider-Man. And you know why he's still Spider-Man? Because there's a movie with him coming out in July. So it's just one of those weird things. I mean, stop referring to comic book fans as racist because they're against diversity. Comic book fans are just like anybody else. Comic book fans are like NFL fans. If somebody had been following the Chicago Bears for years and years and years and years, I don't even know if they're a team anymore, but they've been following the Chicago Bears forever, and then suddenly the Bears uprooted and went to a different city, they'd feel betrayed because they were loyal fans. They were there through thick and thin. It's just like anything else. It's just like anything that people get attached to. They don't want to see it change, not because they're adverse to change, but because they love the character that they have, because they're attached to that character. They don't want to see it go away. But anyway, guys, I'm going to go ahead and bring this video to an end. I just wanted to kind of get my 2 cents out there. I haven't looked at the comments on Comicstorian's video. I imagine there might be some kind of people who are detractors or something like that. But in truth, I stand with Benny on this one. I mean, I stand with Comicstorian. I think he's right. Diversity is not a bad thing in and of itself. It becomes a bad thing when you don't give people a choice but to read diversity. Give people a choice. Let them choose what they want to read. Let them choose stories they like and stories that they don't like. Let them stick with the characters that they know and love. After all, that's why DC Rebirth is crushing Marvel. If the diversity initiative of Marvel Comics was so great, then why are their comics selling so poorly? In any event, guys, we're going to bring this video to an end, and I will catch you all later. Peace.